My name's Kristin van den Eede. I'm 38 and I live in Ghent, Belgium with my husband Christophe and my dog Roxy. I teach English, Dutch and Swedish at Ghent University, but my greatest passion in life is photography. This is my story. I grew up in a small town not far from Ghent. I was a very happy child, a sensitive teenager, and I spent hours poring over books, writing poetry and sci-fi stories. I also liked to draw, especially faces and trees. When I turned 18, I met someone and I convinced myself that he made me happy, even though it was a toxic relationship and it wasn't good for me at all. Some people say that they need to be miserable to be able to create something, but it didn't feel like that for me. It wasn't until I was 29 that I ended things and turned my life around. I felt like a new person, really, completely free. I met Christophe and he gave me a new lust for life and art and travel, music and food and drink. In 2013 he bought a camera and he started taking it with him on walks. I followed not too long after that. We both fell in love with Flickr and the entire online street photography community. We met other photographers and we attended festivals and we basically just learned a lot and we tried to become better photographers. I became a member of Observe, an international photography collective. We travelled the world together and taking photos kind of became an excuse to travel, and vice versa. Meanwhile, I'd also started working as a freelance translator, copywriter and editor on top of my regular job. And on top of that, I also taught classes at the University of Luxembourg. My workdays were really very long and most of our weekends were dedicated to photography, either going out to shoot or going to exhibitions or reading up on whatever inspiring books we could find. We lived a very busy life and I enjoyed every minute of it. Then in January 2019, my body suddenly stopped working. There's no other way to describe it. All of a sudden, I couldn't even get from the couch to the kitchen. I was tired all the time, aching all over. I felt like I had the flu. I couldn't focus. I had a long list of symptoms and I underwent all kinds of tests and scans at the hospital. Around the same time, our 13-year-old dog passed away and left the house very quiet. Never not feeling tired and not knowing what's wrong with you is pretty frustrating. Those months were absolutely terrible, but I know I also have a lot to be grateful for. I have wonderful friends and a wonderful family, and they stopped by for a hug, or they brought me dinner, or just kept me company. And my husband, well, he's just the best. He waited with me at the hospital for hours. He was always patient. He ran out to the pharmacy for me first thing in the morning, brought me coffee or breakfast when I woke up. He did everything he could to make me feel better. He also took me on short vacations by car to take my mind off things. They were very quiet and uneventful, these vacations, but just being in a different environment made me feel a bit like myself again. I took a lot of shots from the car and from my bed those months. In total, it took half a year to finally get a diagnosis. Turns out I have sarcoidosis. It's an inflammatory systemic disease that targets your immune system. I'd never heard of it before. There's no cure, there are only ways to cope, in varying degrees. Of course, I'm stubborn, so I tried anything that could be a cure. Nothing really worked. What does help is lots of stretching and yoga. Roxy likes to make this a bit of a challenge. What also does wonders for me is relaxing my muscles in a hot bath, and going for walks with Roxy helps too. Generally, I need to pace my activities. Everything takes me twice as long as before because I need to recuperate, and some days are better than others. I can't really control what I feel, but One thing I can control is how I react, and photography helps me filter out the constant soreness. Unfortunately, I can't shoot how I used to. I used to shoot for hours, ideally in some major metropolis far away from home. Tokyo, New York, London, Rome, Paris. Now, instead, I stay close to home or even indoors. And I shoot only when it's nice and quiet and only for short amounts of time. I've learned to love the calm though, quite simply because there's no other way. One of the reasons why I love photography is because one image can trigger such a strong emotional response. For me, that's what makes a photo successful, or a movie, a song, a painting, a poem, or any work of art for that matter. I want to feel something. I want to make things that make others feel. At the end of the day, though, I take photos only for me. I put all of myself into an image and it looks back at me, and I find that comforting. I took this shot in Tokyo, where you're not allowed to smoke on the streets, so there are designated smoking areas everywhere, and the smokers cast these beautiful silhouettes on the panels around them. This one I took just a few hours later. I guess I have these bouts of inspiration and sometimes long dry spells in between. The carnival at Aalst, Belgium is just crazy. There are silly parades and people in the weirdest costumes. There was a time when Christophe and I visited a different zoo or museum every weekend because we were hoping to get that one lucky shot. I've always found it really hard to shoot for an assignment because it's something that I have to do and that just paralyzes me. I push myself and then I end up with an image that I'm happy with. I don't think what I do is really street photography, and this is a good example, I think. I don't typically take my camera with me unless I intend to use it. Still, every now and then I do put it in my bag and then I'm glad I took it with me. Right around the time I started feeling sick, I went for quiet walks in my neighbourhood after sunset. At night the lights are just muted and the colours are warm, and for me the world's just a nicer place to be in. This image is kind of special to me. I felt awful when I took it. I was in a lot of pain and I still needed to come to terms with that. So I'm actually quite proud that I could see past all that and lock on to something beautiful, like these dark sunflowers. It feels like they're waiting for things to clear up, just like me. One thing I've taken away from a book I've read tons of books in quarantine. I'm a bit of a bookworm. So one thing I learned is action precedes motivation. Don't wait for motivation to hit you like some sort of lightning bolt. Don't overthink things and just do something. And while you're doing it, odds are that you will start to enjoy it and be motivated. It's okay, you know, just let go. Let go of the pressure of social media, let go of the fear that everything's been done before, that someone else will beat you to the punch, let go of your own or other people's expectations. When I manage to let go of all of those things, that's when I love photography the most, and that's when I'm able to actually see and create something new. It doesn't happen a lot, but that's what makes it special, I guess. I feel like sarcoidosis took a lot away from me, and it makes me incredibly sad sometimes. But I try to focus on what I still have and the things I can still do. I can still appreciate beautiful moments, I can still see things that move me, and there's nothing quite like the rush of capturing that in a photo. I saw Jojo Rabbit the other day, and the movie ended with a quote by Rilke. It just stuck with me, and I think it's a nice way to end. It says, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going, no feeling is final."